We built a brand that really went toe to toe with Hydroxycut and stole a lot of their business. We came out with some programs and some muscle building kits, weight loss kits that were just worked amazingly, right? And we couldn't keep the things in stock. So the powers that be at the time at Muscle Tech sent a guy to my house to deliver papers to me, and that said, "Hey, you're being sued for $110 million.
$110 million.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. As my dad said, you're probably the most popular Stevenson on the planet.
Welcome to the Shots Ring Podcast. Today, I am joined by Craig Stevenson, and Craig now is the president of Undefined Nutrition, a long history of being in the sports nutrition world. I met Craig, coming up on 10 years ago now?
Yeah,
probably.
It would have been 2014 when we first met.
Yeah, so maybe even just a touch over that, but yeah, man, it's exciting to get you on here, and I think this will be a really fun conversation.
Yeah, I was kind of nervous. There's a lot of history. There's basically 30 years of history in the sports supplement industry, in this mind and in this body. So yeah, there's some crazy stories, some real positives, a few challenges, and it's such a great industry to be in because you get to help people and really help them pursue what their passions are, and that ultimately is the driver of why I entered this world.
Is that what got you interested? I was going to ask that question. Like, what kind of got you that fire lit, for you way back when you got started?
Yeah, well, it was back in high school, playing football. One of the things that was appropriate to that was the weight room and training, and I just fell in love with lifting weights like many people do, especially at that age. And, seeing your body change and then seeing your athletic performance change. And then ultimately I pursued a degree in exercise physiology and a minor in nutrition through school. And then really from there, it just took off.
So the interest level was very high, but it was because you got in the weight room.
Yeah, there's as you know, better than anyone else. There's nothing like the feeling of touching weights.
No,
right?
Especially at that age, right? Like it's something that it just this shift. I know for me it was this major shift of how I felt about myself, and being able to go in and be in control of working hard, and then be able to see the results and feel the results. And everything just shifted. Everything started to shift in my world at that age, right? And of course it's, your body image, and now it's probably even more so because back then we didn't have all the, the social media posts and whatever. I mean, it was maybe somebody developed a picture, right? Like on a camera, and that's how you got to see yourself. But now it's like, everything being put out to that younger generation. And it's how do you view yourself and how do you feel about yourself? So to get interested in that, and I mean, very much my same interest came from that in wanting to go into strength and conditioning and into sports performance and all of that world, because you want to obviously transfer what happened for you to other people.
Yeah. I mean, you mentioned a couple of things. One, back when I was getting into it, 16 to 18 years old, the only thing you had was how you walked around, right? And how your buddies walked around and how you dressed, all that sort of stuff. And that sense of pride of changing your body, feeling a certain way, being part of a crew or a group. Now it's instantaneous, right? You'll see people in the gym, whether it's strength training or changing their physique or whatever. They're literally sitting there taking videos of themselves, and within 30 seconds, their buddies know, their families know, whoever knows.
It's an instant update.
It's completely different, but the thrill or the sense of accomplishment is no different 30 years ago than it is today, right? And I always liken it to, because of this world that we operate in, I liken it to getting your driver's license.
That freedom,
that feeling the first time your parents actually give you the keys and say, go, right?
Yes.
That doesn't change over the 30 years. And that same feeling of being, in your youth or whatever, and changing your body, feeling that weight, or getting, 2 plates on a bench, it's the same, right? So, because we're in the industry of helping people change, helping people improve, you can take what you've learned 30 years ago and it's no different. It's just how it gets portrayed to the public.
That's such a true statement. I mean, when you really think about it, right? Like it hasn't changed. So it's like things are different now. And, of course, like the instant updates and this type of thing, but the feeling that you get internally, it's exactly that. I mean, I remember like, hey, the first right when I turned 16, you get your license, you go for that first try by yourself. You're like, wow, this is wild, right? Like it's this whole new world, and same thing, with the training and all that. But it's a neat, that's a neat take on it, man. I like that.
Yeah, it's again, a 16-year-old 30 years ago is really no different than a 16-year-old today. They just have different ways of communicating and showing people their, what they do and what they stand for.
Yeah, man, that's awesome. So sports wise, was football the main one for you?
I grew up in Canada, so hockey obviously was a major factor. But
yes.
Getting into the high school side, it was track and field, sprinting, and football.
Is that what you excelled at?
Yeah, both of those. I was relatively accomplished in the high school level, anyways, and played a little bit in college, and
nice.
Had a couple of injuries, and then just decided to get more into weight training and pursue the education side a little bit more seriously too.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. But like being able to go to the next level, and start that. So an injury stopped that?
Yeah, I had, my first, I think it was about 2 weeks into my freshman year of playing football at the University of Ottawa. I got a helmet on one side of my wrist and a helmet on the other, and it broke my scaphoid bone.
Oh,
and
crap.
The scaphoid didn't want to heal, so it took, I think, like 17 or 18 weeks for it to heal. And by that time, the season
how frustrating is that?
Yeah, I mean, it kind of pushed me on a path that I quite enjoyed, right? Which was lifting weights and learning about the body and the physiology and all that sort of stuff that today we use on a daily basis in our work life.
Yeah, it's neat. It's neat though to how sometimes. I mean, did you look back on something like that and say, hey, that happened for a reason? And at that point, it was like, hey, this injury, and now, you kind of branched out into that a little bit more?
Yeah. I mean, when you're young, you like a lot of things. You're discovering a lot of things. Yeah. But it really taught me that changing the human body, understanding the human body, and all the aspects around it is really where I belonged.
Okay.
Right? I wasn't going to be playing in the NFL or even the CFL, sure. Right? You have to have a certain commitment level. But this really pushed me towards, where I am today and that path. It pushed me into bodybuilding. It pushed me into some powerlifting. It really drove me into my education a lot deeper, when a lot of my friends would be out partying at school, I'd be in the library until 1:00 until they kicked me out, right? Reading journals, physiology journals, nutrition journals, all that sort of stuff. So that's, it's a blessing in disguise, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's neat. So you're just consumed by it then?
Yeah. I mean, it's been my life.
Yeah.
Right. And, going from, the student aspect to starting my own business and consulting for certain sports teams like the Ottawa Senators, it consumed me.
Yeah.
And, that's kind of what you need, right? Mm-hmm. As you know, if come in the strength world, you wouldn't have been where you were unless you were consumed.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
And, everything's a blessing in disguise, and, the path is not straight.
Yeah.
So you get to where you are, and it's magical here that I'm sitting across from you.
Yeah.
Right. So
No,
many
it's
years
fun.
later, right?
Yeah.
This is the great part of the journey.
Yeah. It's neat, man. So you go through, you're studying hard there. When did those doors start to open where you started to work with either those teams or, got kind of the, I guess, break, right? Like where it's like, all right, I'm interested in this. And now the doors start to open where I'm able to kind of get into it a little bit more.
Yeah, it was interesting. I was always motivated. So I started my own business, right out of university, right out of college. And that, because I had prepared myself with knowledge that many other people didn't have or weren't willing to get, I started attracting certain clients that got great results, and then they started talking to their contacts. And then all of a sudden I started getting phone calls from a number of NHL players. And then eventually I got a phone call from one of the coaches from the Ottawa Senators saying, hey, listen, we need a bit of help with some of our nutrition and sports supplements.
And that wasn't consulting, like from a nutrition standpoint. Is that what the business was?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So people started just having results, and then it was word of mouth, like open those doors. That's really neat.
Yeah. And again, back then I was probably, believe it or not, I'll date myself, but I was probably one of the first people in this industry to actually have a website.
That's cool.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's hard, a lot of the younger generation doesn't understand that. Right. No. But I was taking business and physiology and nutrition and combining them in different way than many other people had. And that, I was using QuickBooks when I was 21 years old.
That's amazing.
And that's how you learn a lot of the entrepreneurial, the business side, the numbers, and how it works with the customer.
Yeah, that's crazy, man. But it's like to start that and open those doors. And I remember my very first website and how much of a big deal it was.
Yeah.
And even then, because I was probably 2000, maybe 7, around that time. Yep. 2008 is when and it was a very primitive website, right? Just very basic. And I remember I had found this woman that was going to do it, and we had these meetings and what was going to go where and the flow chart of how it was going to go. And it was a big deal, right? But it was also a big investment for me at that point to try to make that happen and get it out there. But for you to be that forward thinking where it's like, hey, I need to have a website, I need to have a presence there, and then combine all of that together, you're meeting needs, right? Like,
sure. Yeah. And it's, the lesson out of it is you're never too young, try. Sometimes things work, sometimes they don't.
Yeah.
Sometimes there's obstacles, sometimes it's an easy path.
Sure.
Right. But it's, the motivation from me to, go from lifting all these weights and learning the discipline and dieting for bodybuilding contests, things like that, have always translated into business. Right. Yep. And that has, fortunately, a work ethic and organization, how to talk to people, how to negotiate deals, all that sort of stuff has helped me all the way through my professional career as well.
Yeah. It's huge.
Yeah.
Huge. It's, something that sometimes I don't think people understand that, right? Because let's just take bodybuilding, for example. You have a regimen that you have to follow, right? And you have to be disciplined, because especially if you're going to not only do bodybuilding, but actually get on stage.
Yeah.
This is a different thing, right? Like, and you have a kind of a deadline that's set, not kind of a real deadline that's set. And you're going to have to take off all your clothes basically and walk up there and be judged, right? Like, so you have that in the back of your head, but it's you got to get it. And it's all the discipline that goes along with it, the training, the nutrition, being dialed in on everything. There's no stone unturned, right? Like, that's kind of how it goes. And that's learning that, going through it. You have to find a different gear. You have to, right? So like a lot of people out there, and I say this anyway, I think everybody should train. I think everybody should do
100%
lifting in some capacity, because, like we've talked about here at the beginning a little bit about, you know, when you're younger, what it kind of teaches you and starts to show you, and then your confidence goes up. But, you know, again, then you can start to set these small goals for yourself, and you have accountability, and you start to feel like, well, I'm excited to go work out. And then if you skip it, you almost have this feeling like, man, I let myself down. You know, I shouldn't have done that. And then you get back on, you build positive momentum. I mean, there's so many good things around that, but to your point, I mean, to bring that back in, like what you went through with the training, with the bodybuilding, with powerlifting, and bring that back into business, I would argue that a lot of people that have done that, when they go into business, it's such a great attribute to have, because you can always fall back on it. You this is the foundation to kind of build off of.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you listen to certain legends like Arnold, and, you know, the lessons that they preach from bodybuilding is discipline, preparation, focus, pushing out distraction, right? So that you're committed. And, you know, one of the great things that I like about working here is getting to see you on a daily basis, the same thing. So it doesn't matter whether it's bodybuilding, strongman, football, my youngest son with hockey.
Yeah.
There's a level of focus and commitment and dedication that you have to build into yourself. And not everyone has that inherently. There are different types of personalities, right?
Yeah.
Some people throw the clothes on the floor. Some people hang them up facing the right way in the closet.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
But learning those skills and that discipline from lifting weights, whether it be powerlifting, strongman, bodybuilding, or whatnot, that's the important piece of the puzzle.
Yeah.
Right. And you teach yourself things about nutrition. You teach yourself things about sports supplementation, all that sort of stuff. Is you're building yourself a plan, and you're building yourself discipline.
Yeah. So where did things go from there once you kind of built that website and business started going better and building up a little bit more? What was the next step in the progression for you?
Yeah, well, it was interesting. I mean, the company was growing, and I was actually guest lecturing some nutrition courses at university and building some courses for them. And then there was this ad that I saw in this little bodybuilding flyer, and it was an ad from a company called Muscle Tech.
Okay.
And they were looking for people in marketing. And they were based out of just outside of Toronto. And at the time I was in Ottawa, where I went to school. And I said, you know what, I'll apply to that.
Yeah.
Who knows, right? I see their ads in the magazines and everything else.
Yep.
It looks like a pretty cool company. I'd like to be a part of that and learn some more things. And I magically got a call to set up a first phone interview, and it went well. We talked about great things like creatine and amino acids and whey protein and all this sort of stuff on the phone. And then they invited me up to the head office for a face-to-face interview. And we went deeper into these sorts of things, and we went into the depths of bodybuilding, and really it to me, it ended up being, my goodness, I can go and learn more things about business, and I get to train in the gym that's right here. I get to eat and sleep sports supplementation.
Sure.
I get to be involved in all these things. And, magically they offered me the job, and up I moved, and kind of the rest is history.
That's cool, man. That's cool. So getting that opportunity with Muscle Tech was at the time where, what year would that have been then?
That would have been right around, that would have been around 2000, I think.
Okay. So kind of, they were still very much building up.
Absolutely. So we were still in the ephedra era.
Yep.
For those people that remember that ingredient that works so well.
Yep.
But ephedra was becoming a hot topic. at that time, and so we were developing new formulas for hydroxycut and doing a lot of changes in the industry. That was really when the pharmaceutical industry started catching wind of, oh boy, these guys are selling a lot of these pills, powders, and potions.
So they started to pay attention more.
So they started to pay attention, and everyone's belief was there was a lot of lobbying in that time to suppress a lot of that so that the pharmaceutical companies could capture that business.
Sure. I wouldn't be surprised by that.
Yeah. Yeah. They were, those were wild times, particularly in the industry. You had companies like EAS,
sure,
that were on there. Metrex was a really strong company, and MuscleTech was kind of the new kid on the block that was just rapidly punching our way up.
Because at that point, EAS would have been bigger, right? Like, or similar?
Yeah, EAS would have been bigger, and a couple of years more established.
Okay.
Than MuscleTech, but every great champion needs an adversary.
Yeah, yeah.
And MuscleTech really took that position of becoming an adversary in that world.
Yeah.
And
Big time, yeah.
We had this group of young, hungry, weightlifting guys that
sure,
that maybe weren't classically trained in marketing and business and stuff, but we bit off stuff, we chewed it, and we just went.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
Like no holds barred with whether it be formulations to images, pictures that we picked, and photo shoots that we did for the magazines. Like it was just a crazy, rabid time.
Yeah. And I mean, people won't, well, some people will realize, but I mean, at that point, the magazines were big, like advertising in magazines, right? So it's, all of them, Muscle and Fitness and, what was it? Muscle Mag.
Yeah.
Like you had, so I mean, those were, but you would see those, and I remember seeing them. Like you'd go to the grocery store, and as all the magazines were out, and it's like, oh, who's on the cover, this type of thing, right? Like it was a big deal, and especially those to have a big presence in the magazine itself as you're thumbing through, because there's so many advertisements, but to have an ad that really popped out, that stood out,
yeah.
A product that stood out, right? And I mean, I'm one of the guys that got hooked into the MuscleTech marketing that you were probably behind too, right? Because it was like, hey, what was it, like Cell Tech and Nitro Tech, and like you needed all the techs, man. It was like, you got to have this whole, what was it, Meso Tech or something like that?
Yeah, that was the meal replacement.
Yeah. So it was like you had them all kind of lined up. And,
it wasn't cool, it wasn't too ingenious, was it? Tech.
I tell you what, well, it caught on, man. It caught on because it marketing, but then you had, I mean, you guys had at that point like a big crew of guys too, like because there was, I mean, how many of the bodybuilders, the top bodybuilders came over?
Oh boy,
to MuscleTech. It was almost everybody, right?
It was an impressive crew. I mean, after I left, when I was there, probably our biggest name was Cutler.
Yeah,
Jay was there when I was there, and we had this strategy of we could get these top amateur national guys before they turned pro at a good price, a really good value. They look like a pro in the magazine.
Sure.
Like a 16, 17-year-old kid would not go, oh my God, look at that body sucks.
They're already,
they're like pro, right? Yeah. And if you get the right photographer, the right lighting, and get them to prepare properly, they were as good as Ronnie Coleman.
Yeah.
Right. So we had probably at any one time 50. When I got there, probably one of the most famous that MuscleTech made famous was Greg Kovacs.
The bigger, he was the huge bodybuilder, right?
Yeah, he competed a few times, but his body was not aesthetically pleasing.
Sure.
But we created a campaign and an image around him like he was superhuman.
Got it.
Right? Because I think he was 6'1", approximately, about 410 pounds.
Huge. Just
Huge, right?
Yep.
I mean, to any common person, the biggest thing, they didn't really care if he was on stage competing. They wanted to meet him, and they wanted to know what he took.
Yep.
Right. And you mentioned Mesotech before, and Mesotech, he would eat those individual serving packets like 12 a day.
Yeah.
And they were 70 grams of protein per pack, right?
So he's got almost 900 grams of protein there.
Yeah. and that's not a world most people are from, but they look at it and they're like, oh my God, if I want to get big, that's what I got to do. And if, it's no different than in today's day and age, and I see it on a daily basis with you. If I want to get strong, what is Brian doing? Sure. That's who you look to. Who's the best in the world, and how can I learn?
Yeah.
Right. So they were exciting times. Like I can't even imagine that we could hire enough people to count the money. We were growing so fast. I remember one time we were growing so fast, we ran out of space. And this one poor guy in the marketing department got his desk right beside the toilet.
Oh boy.
Right. Yeah. And this is 60, 70 guys that get free protein all day long.
So that's the worst spot you could possibly be.
And we just couldn't fit the people in because we were growing so fast.
Yeah.
Right. And this poor guy all day long. And he was just an exceptional copywriter and, great part of the team, but the poor guy got the last straw.
Yeah, that's that. I was going to say you drew the short straw if you get the desk right by the bathroom.
Oh my God. It was he just took the brunt of it so well. But that was, those were great times, challenging times, but at the end of the day, the supplements and the things that we're involved with, because I was on the new product development innovation team as well, they were good, like really good. Yeah. And everyone knows the story that like MuscleTech is still strong in the industry today.
Yep.
So lots of lessons learned there. We had lots of failures and lots of successes, but it was a lot of fun.
That roller coaster ride, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, going up and down. So after MuscleTech, what was for you? I mean, what was your kind of drive? I guess, right? Like, did you still feel like you were helping people? Obviously at MuscleTech, right? Like getting out and like meeting their goals and giving the products that would help them.
Yeah, I think at that age when I was much younger, it wasn't so much about helping people. Yeah. It was, I had a cool job.
That you were interested in.
Yeah, that I was interested in, all the perks, free supplements. We got to go to Vegas for the Olympia. Different motivational factors.
100%. Yeah.
When I left there, I went to a company called Wellnex Life Sciences, and we were in both the sports supplement and weight loss industries as well. We had created a product called Slim Quick, the female fat burner, which absolutely exploded with the team I was working with. And then we also had a brand called NX Labs.
I remember that. Yep.
Yeah, and NX Labs, these are great lessons because NX Labs was called NX Care before I got there.
Interesting.
A little more lifestyle brand, so on and so forth. And the company actually got into a legal battle with another company called NX Care that did bandages and Band-Aids and all that sort of stuff. Okay. So we made a shift, really a full shift from going from health and fitness and wellness to bodybuilding, hardcore bodybuilding with NX Labs. And we took a lot of, high energy learnings and applied them over there and just blew the company up.
Yeah, that's awesome.
It was a skyrocket. The first year we received the Rising Star Award at GNC. Slim Quick quickly went from the number one selling fat burner in Walmart Canada. That buyer phoned the buyer in Walmart US And all of a sudden we were at the top of the food chain there.
Boy, that's big. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, I think we went from, a little over $1 million in revenue when I joined the company to $107 million in just over 2 years.
That's insane growth.
It was unbelievable.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
But, that type of business growth also comes with challenges and, like how do you produce that much product?
Yes.
I remember working with a graphic artist at 4 a.m. one night, to get a new package done with new language. Like in Canada, you have French and English. Now we had to go to American English.
Sure.
And we just did whatever it took.
Yeah. Just grinding.
Yeah. And we took it on TV, and we couldn't keep it in stock. It was unbelievable. And today, even to this day, Slim Quick is still on the shelves and doing very well.
Isn't that awesome, man? Like to have, because you have like certain products that come out and they have like this incredible amount of hype behind them.
Yeah.
Right. And they get out there and everybody's kind of on the train, for a little while. And then a lot of times you'll see it kind of fall off. And it's like, oh, I remember that, but why did it go away? Or like, oh yeah, somebody brings some supplement up and say like, oh, I used to take that. And then it just kind of done, And it's like have that lasting, something that lasts that long is really cool.
Yeah, there's so many factors because the majority of the companies in our industry are privately owned. Just like, Undefined Nutrition is privately owned by you and Carrie. And if something happens to an owner or XYZ happens, it goes away.
Yeah.
Like look at some of the supplements that we've talked about along the way. Ultimate Orange.
Yes.
Right? Like that doesn't exist anymore.
Nope.
But how good it was at the time is you can't argue it.
No, it was crazy. Yeah.
But that's back in the ephedra days where you could have these sorts of things. I mean, we were producing pro hormones as well because pro hormones weren't illegal.
Yes. That was part of a normal thing. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, when I graduated from university, before going to Muscle Tech, I created basically a cell tech, so carbohydrates and creatine, but I put andro in it.
Oh my goodness.
And I had people, I'm not kidding you, lining up at my apartment door day and night for it. It was unbelievable.
Yeah.
Right. And it was legal at the time.
Yeah.
But no one thought of putting andro in such a, powerful creatine product. Right. And I would sell back in 2000-ish, I'd sell 50, 60 bottles out of my house.
Isn't that crazy?
A week.
Huh. Right.
So, but guys were blowing up on it. Right. So,
sure. So they were excited to take it. And
yeah.
It's crazy, man. Like that, it's I remember when that shift came with all the pro hormones were like, oh, now they're banned. And then it's, all of these companies that were selling those are now no longer selling those, pulling them off, that type of thing. And it was a big shift, right? Like, but the same thing with the ephedra, right? So like the hydroxycut and that type of thing was a huge deal. And then it was like, nope, ephedra is not good anymore. We're pulling it off. And it's weird how they go after, certain things and then those products are gone. And then these companies have to shift or pivot to try to keep that market share going,
Yeah. And that is one of the, key aspects of a business like we're in, right? Is how do you look to the future? How do you get a pulse and a feeling about certain things, certain ingredients, all that sort of stuff? And what do you choose to put into your products, right? Do you go with a high-priced branded ingredient that might have some human clinical trials on it that's probably here for a long time? Or do you go to a generic knockoff of that?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So, like we've had multiple conversations about how we want to build the undefined brand and all that. And it's, that sets the stage for the high road, I guess I would call it.
Sure.
Right.
Yep.
And the high road is, hey, you might need 3 grams of creatine to produce an effect, right? So don't sprinkle in 100 milligrams of it just to say you've got creatine in there.
Yes.
Right?
Yep.
Give people what they are going to need to succeed, right? And that's, that's how, business changes so fast. There's been so many shysters in this industry, right? That, unfortunately have caused certain macro shifts in the industry, whether it be an ingredient like ephedra or not.
Yeah. I mean, and that's the thing is, I think for especially like you said, what we are building with Undefined Nutrition, it's what the conversations that happen behind closed doors are super important to the brand, the integrity, and ultimately us giving the end consumer the best product that we possibly can, right? And not cut any corners. And there's nothing done behind closed doors. And everybody, and I've been super clear with this with people, is like, well, if we're going to do it, we're going to do it right, versus trying to cut corners. Because I think a lot of people, and now I think people are becoming wiser, and they look at a little bit more of the history of things and that type of, they have that type of approach, at least that mentality of like, well, what am I getting? What am I putting in my body? And I think that's probably going to even become more now.
Yeah.
Like I feel like in the last couple of years, even it's like, well, what's more quality, right? And what am I getting out of this versus, maybe taking something that's just not as good or not as reputable, that type of thing. I think people are going to look at that even more. And people's eyes are being open, which is really cool, to be fair. Like, you want to take, obviously the best supplements that you possibly can, the best food you possibly can, all of this type of stuff, because you're fueling your body, which is the machine.
Yeah. Again, there was a transformation within our industry around, another kind of tactic, which was called amino spiking, right? Where certain companies were basically putting whey protein in, and then they were adding amino acids like lysine in, which make protein kind of feel better to the mouth feel.
Interesting.
But they're also much less expensive, right? So they were cutting their costs, not delivering the complete protein. But if you ever went and got the product tested, what they're testing for is nitrogen, right?
Okay.
And the nitrogen value was coming back perfectly fine.
Wow.
But it was laced with amino acids like lysine, which literally are half or a third of cost of whey protein. So this whole amino spiking, while it probably wasn't right because it was kind of hidden in the labels and everything else, once it was found out, it kind of cleaned up the industry as far as the protein was concerned.
Isn't that interesting? I remember certain products where you would see the testing happen.
Yep.
Right. And it was like, hey, this company is claiming they have 25 grams of protein in their product, and then this company's claiming 28, this one's 30, whatever. And they would go through these tests, and there was kind of like an independent testing that was happening. And then it was always interesting to come back and you're like, well, that's very negative press if your product doesn't meet the label claim of what you're claiming on the label. And I think, like you said, I think some of those things have certainly improved, but I guarantee there's people that are still trying to get underneath it and go where they don't have to necessarily have the product costs associated, but they're like, hey, look, we're going to market this, whatever it is. And then once we're found out, whoops, we screwed up or whatever, right? Like it's such a bad thing. Yeah.
Everyone is trying to make a buck, right? Whether you're trying to make a buck from, the standpoint of, I want to provide a great product that's going to give a great result, where a customer will be satisfied, versus I want to make a great product, or I want to get some money out of this and they're going to get some protein.
Sure.
Two different things. And that was one of the biggest pieces of the puzzle when I was interviewing with you and Carrie was, how do you want to build this company?
Yeah.
Right. And your response for Undefined Nutrition was, we may build this company and actually use it as a legacy, right? Maybe the boys want to get into this industry at some point in time, right? Your two sons, and you can't leave them junk.
No.
You have to leave them a stable foundation, right? And that was one of the keys that, after 30 years in this business, I had to make a decision on.
Sure.
And that was part of it. And every single day, we come in and it's about a great formula, a great customer experience. You should feel like you're part of the family.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's the difference. There's publicly traded companies that are looking at their profit sharing. They're looking at their shareholders, not saying they're producing a different, a bad product or an underperforming product, but it's a different mindset than Undefined Nutrition, right?
Yes.
You and Carrie have built a reputation over multiple years, and you have kind of produced this, I wouldn't say campaign around yourself, but, be great.
Yeah.
Right? Be great with your formula, be great with your nutrition, be great with your family, be great with, all these aspects of life. And that was a true factor in me coming in and bringing 30 years of experience into this brand.
Yeah. Well, it's one of those things, and this, you coming in, it's something where I wanted to start it. So, like, to give people the history of how we met is I actually was sponsored by Isatori, and then you were with Isatori when I came on board there, and then we got to work really close together for my time when I was there. But we were able to kind of start to develop this, friendship really, and business relationship, everything around that. But it was like, as I got further and further into industry, where I'd been with different companies and seen the way the operations happen with different companies, and you kind of get to see behind the curtain a little bit, right? Like, and I started to kind of, especially toward the end of my career, there were some certain things that really started to bother me about, and not with Isatori, but with other places I was that were just like, look, this is not right. And, I'm a sponsored athlete with them, but like, I don't agree. I don't agree with the way things are being done. And I think that was a big motivating factor for me to be like, look, I want to do something where I can be proud of it, right? Like I want to be able to say, hey, look, this is what I do. Like you said earlier, people say, hey, Brian, what are you doing? And I didn't want to be like, well, this is what I'm drinking, but it says undefined on it and it's something else, right? Like I don't like what I'm making because it's just not the best. So I wanted to be able to say what I'm doing, the way that we're doing it is the best that we can possibly do it. And I'm very comfortable recommending it to people for those reasons. And then I can look myself in the mirror and say, hey, I did the best that I could do. And I know that I'm giving the best. And even though, again, maybe our product cost is higher or whatever, and we're not necessarily trying to, not that you don't have to watch the bottom line, because you do, but also we're doing the best that we possibly can to put it out. And so then I get to have integrity. But again, when I go to bed at night, I can live with myself and say, like, I did the best I could, right? I'm trying to give people the best products that we can so that they can go after their goals and feel good about it. And again, that, customer acquisition is the customer is very satisfied and happy with what they got. They got a quality product and we did good, like all around, right? So our entire team is very proud of what we did, but then they, like you said, they feel like they're part of it. They're part of the team, and that's what we're trying to build, right? So it's tough though, because when you see behind different things, and I started to kind of get people that were fans of mine that were like, hey, I am buying this product because of you, Brian, and it's what happened. Like, why did the formula change, or what's going on here? Why did the flavor and they would literally get mad at me, right? And they're coming after me. And I was like, that's when I started to realize more and more, you know what? Like, if I'm going to put my name on something or I'm going to endorse something, this is a big deal, right? Like, and it meant something to me, where I get it. There's probably other athletes or influencers or whatever out there that wouldn't care less. Hey, I'm getting my endorsement deal, whatever, from this company, and I don't care if it's garbage. I'm just collecting my check, and I'm done. I'm good, right? I don't care what happens. But that really bothered me. It really bothered me when people would come after me and say, well, what's going on? It's like, well, I'm not the decision maker for that company. Yeah. Right. So I need to be in a position where I can be the decision maker. So even though it's a big risk and it's a big jump to like try to do your own thing, it's the right thing to do at this moment. And so that's what prompted all of that to happen. And then, you know, I mean, it's me reaching out to you after we were getting going, because there's a lot to a brand and to a supplement company. And once you know, I was kind of jumping into it only from experience that I had, but like when it comes to a product, for example, what does the label look like? What does it say? You know, what about the nutrition facts on it, or supplement facts? Like, how are those coming, and where are those coming from, and what manufacturer are you working with, and what about flavoring, and what about your formula? And like, once you start to peel back the layers, there is a lot going on. And so it just kind of got to a point where I wanted the brand to be more successful, i.e. you reach out to people that have been more successful and have more knowledge in it. And then it was like, this is awesome. So it's, you know, something where building, and it's kind of a roundabout way of saying like, all right, I built a lot of trust with you in the past. And it's like, this is just this light bulb is going off of like, I really need help for this to be successful. And so Craig's the guy that can come in and help with that in a major way. And just our short time together already, it's been awesome. I mean, it's, you know, coming in and we're building that foundation, which is really, really cool.
Yeah. I mean, earlier in some of your comments, this really comes back to legacy. You know, what does, you know, Brian Shaw put his name to, right? And, you know, it's not so much what can you sleep with at night, it's what are people going to associate with your name and your family's name, and Undefined Nutrition or Evolution Athletics, you know, all the companies that you own. You have to have this desire to do something right. Yes. And whether that's a formula, whether that's a return, whether that is an appearance, whether, you know, whatever it is, you have to have this desire to do it right. And again, coming in, you know, to Undefined Nutrition, things are right? Mm-hmm. Like the formulas are very, very, very good and strong, right? Mm-hmm. Like this is not a fluff, hey, put a milligram of that in, put a dusting of that in just to get it on the label. Yeah. It goes through rigorous overview and debate, and, you know, most of the time we pick branded ingredients that have human clinical trials behind them. They're immensely more expensive, right? Yep. And that's why, you know, like if we look at Persist Whey Isolate, for example, I was doing a full review of competitive products the other day, and there are 5-pounders that cost as much in the protein category that cost as much as our 2.2 pound. Yes. Right. And so I'm digging in. Well, that one says 100% whey on it. Ours says whey isolate. And as I drill down a label, I can start to see all the amino acids they added. Interesting. Right? Yep. Now they're exposing it, so it's not covered up amino spiking. Yep. It's open amino spiking. Yeah. But those ingredients are literally a third of the price of our whey isolate. Yeah. From the top supplier in the country. That's right. Crazy. Yeah. So, you know, the challenge is, what do people want to be associated with? What do they want to put in their body? Yep. How do they want to progress? How do they treat their health? Right? Sure. That is clearly what we're focused on here. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And, you know, selfishly, I have the best test subject in the world.
Sure.
You.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
There's no one that's walked on the planet that has more physical demands
Yeah.
than you.
Yeah.
Right? So when we sit down and we have our product development meetings, and after I've worked with, the consultants I work with, and bring a formula to you, it's got expectations.
Yeah.
It's not fluff. It's
No.
not garbage, right? And when you go through your own personal testing of it, if it doesn't pass the test,
Yeah.
we go back,
Yes.
right?
100%.
Like there's just there's no room for, well, it's pretty good.
Yes.
No, these are exceptional products, and we're always going to work on things like flavoring and improve formulas. We're going through a formula rework on a product right now, right?
Yes.
Because we
Yep.
think we can make it better.
100%.
Right.
Yep.
So these are, again, this is the fabric of where we meet in the middle.
Yep.
To build this.
Well, it's holding that line, I think, is very important, right? And I've had people tell me before that have worked with me in different capacities and say, why can't you just say it's good enough? Right?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
why can't you just accept that it's good enough? Like, it's
Yeah,
close.
Third place at Strongest Man on Earth. Well, that's good enough.
No. Yeah.
No.
I mean, there's a reason, things like that. And I've told that story before. When I did get third place, there's a reason I did not open the trophy. They sent it to me, and I didn't open it for like a year. I left it in the box. I didn't even want to look at it because it disgusted me that much. It frustrated me that much, right? And I get it. Like, that's me, and I have to say that because there are other people that, that would be enough. That would be good enough for them. But it's, for me, something like that's very hard. Sure. It's a very hard thing. So it's not like nothing really and truly, like for me, it's like, well, I kind of have that mindset where nothing is really ever good enough. You don't settle. There is no settling, right? Like, never settle. It's you're going to try to raise the bar. And even
Sure.
if we raise the bar, then we'll raise it. We'll, like you said, we'll go back and we'll try to raise it again, or if there's a way to do it. And I think having that mindset, especially around nutritional supplements, is a very good thing to have.
Yeah.
Because there's always ways to make it better, right? Like, always ways to improve. And then when it comes to the formula, like what ideas and all those ideas like you're talking about, and we've got some exciting products that are coming up that we're talking about. And, it's that framework of what makes a great product, right? And then also what do the consumers want? Right.
Correct.
Right. And we kind of keep that in mind, and who is this going to benefit? And it's such a fun thing. But when you have that mindset of never settling, and then we could tie all the way back into the younger bodybuilding or lifting training. If you're settling, well, if you're supposed to do 12 reps and you do 10, right? Now you just missed out on 2 reps. And I mean, I've had this conversation with people before, and guys that came to train would cut it short. They'd cut a rep or 2. And I would lose my mind, because it's like, if you are willing to do that one time, think of how many workouts potentially you miss those couple reps and how much better you could have been. And then when you pose the question, doesn't that drive you crazy? Right? Because I know for me, it would drive me crazy. And if anything, most of the time, if I'm trying to hit 12, if I've got 13 in the tank, I'm going to go for 13, right? And maybe I'm going to dig for 14 if I need to, right? Like, I'm going to have more of that mindset of, I'm going to do an extra one versus one less or 2 less.
Yeah.
Right. So it's just tying it back into that, where you're not settling for something that's just good enough or whatever. I mean, I am constantly, surprised, I think, sometimes when I dig a little bit deeper with people I've had conversations with about this, and they're like, oh, if this is supposed to be a an orange flavor or whatever, it's like, well, is it the best orange ever? Nope, but we're going to slap our label on it and call it orange and we'll be good. But it's like, maybe it's a little bit bitter, or maybe it needs a little bit of sweetness to it or whatever. Like, and maybe that's going to take weeks or months to get that little bit of flavor right? Like, but you know, there are people out there that are unwilling to sacrifice that 6 weeks or more to say, hey, let's go back and make it right. And then the end product's going to be better. But it would be like training in the gym and missing out on these reps or missing out on exercises or maybe not training with the intensity you should have. The end result's never going to be as good, right? So it's kind of like that. But again, that driving mindset of what you brought up early on is like, it's such a motivating factor to do it the correct way.
Yeah. I mean, every business that is a not for profit business versus a for-profit business, you have to distinguish what you're about, right?
100%.
And we are a for-profit business, right?
You have to be, yes, yeah.
Right. So, you know, we have to take into consideration cost of goods, margin analysis, all of these types of things. But, you know, when I come to you and we have a conversation when we're getting close to a product launching, and we've got a new product launching, you know, hopefully end of March, it looks like.
Yeah.
But we have these conversations. And one of the conversations that really struck with me was we both talked about GNC Gold Card days.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
When you're a young, aspiring athlete or someone who's discovering the gym and you learn about sports supplements and you save your money.
Yes.
Right? And you're like, oh my God, I don't make thousands of dollars as a 16-year-old, but everything goes to the gym, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
You know, which ultimately goes to the ladies or whatever,
Yes,
you know.
yeah.
But the value that you need to get or want to get when you love lifting weights and you want to change your body, you want to change your mind, all these things, we want to deliver on that promise here, right? We don't want them to, oh, I didn't really get a good pump in the gym. Oh, I'm really trying to break 2 plates, so I'm going to take a double scoop of pre-workout, and it's still not working.
Yeah.
We want to deliver what we were looking for when we were 16.
Big time.
Right?
Big
Which
time.
is products that are exciting.
Yeah.
Right? Do they have the right ingredients in them? Do they have the patented ingredients in them? Does Brian actually use them? Like these are exciting things. And then when I take it, does it work? Right? Does it deliver on its promise? You know, if I'm spending $60 on something, does it deliver on a $60 promise?
Yes.
You know, that is the core of it. We have to balance business with what our gut tells us. Right? And that's where a lot of companies in this industry stray. Right? That's one or the other.
Yeah.
Right. I've worked with some consumer packaged goods companies that if it didn't make sense on a spreadsheet, it doesn't go to market.
Yeah.
Right. But, you know, they didn't have the gut saying there's a huge demand for this. And if we can get our volumes up and we can lower our cost of goods over time, we'll eventually get where we want to go from a business standpoint. And that's the real challenge. And that's what I've learned in 30 years. Like I've worked for some of the biggest pharmaceutical companies in the world, right? Where you are driven by a completely different motivator than what we're driven with from here. And that's where I learned, you know, a lot of my depth on the financial analysis, budgeting, all that sort of stuff. But it has to, in our world, it has to be combined with, what does a pump feel like?
Yes. Yeah.
What does it feel like when you squat 3 plates for the first time?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That you cannot quantify that.
No.
It's only qualified, right? And you know, and we're talking weights here. A lot of our supplements are used for athletic performance, endurance, all these sorts of things. Joint recovery, right? Our recovery product called Recovery.
Yeah.
We're not just in the hardcore world of I'm going to break a strength record. We play in other categories
100%.
as well.
Yep.
But you have to deliver and have to know what that customer is after, right? And you know that the 16-year-old customer versus a 45-year-old customer are completely different animals.
Yes.
Right.
Yep.
So in how we look at product development and how we interpret, our next steps in the company is we have to look at the targets we're going after and what are their attributes. A 45-year-old man is starting to lose testosterone.
Sure.
Hey, can we help solve that problem so they don't have to go in and get injections?
Yes. Yeah.
So that could be in the future. Who knows?
Sure.
Right?
Sure. Yep.
We launched creatine monohydrate 30 years after creatine monohydrate was a thing.
Yep.
But it is critical because people can add it to their branched chain amino acids. People can add it to their pre-workout. They can add it at a low cost and a high return.
Absolutely.
So it fit our product development life cycle and some gaps that we had to fill.
100%.
Collagen, complement to so many things, your joint, hair, skin, and nails, protein intake, so on and so forth. It's been an amazing selling product.
Yeah. No,
right?
absolutely.
So yeah. And just the highest quality that we can find.
Yeah. So I want to ask you, roller coaster ride, because you shared a couple things with me, like through your career, right? Like the ups and downs. What was kind of like one of the biggest highs to lows? Like, I know there's some different stuff that came down the pike.
Sure. So, yeah, I mean, we've had some interesting conversations about this. When I left Muscle Tech and went to Wellnex or Life Sciences, we built a brand that really went toe to toe with Hydroxycut and stole a lot of their business. And then on the sports supplement side with NX Labs, we couldn't produce the product fast enough. Rising Star award at GNC, and we came out with some programs and some muscle building kits, weight loss kits that were just worked amazingly, right? And we couldn't keep the things in stock. So, the powers that be at the time at Muscle Tech sent a guy to my house to deliver papers to me, and that said, "Hey, you're being sued for $110 million."
110 million.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. As my dad said, you're probably the most popular Stevenson on the planet right now.
Yeah.
Right. And, as a young professional aspiring to get up, it's a little bit rattling, and
of course
had to go pretty deep into, some legal discovery and all this sort of stuff. And eventually they dropped everything, but that was their strategy to stop us and a number of my colleagues from, taking all their market share.
Sure.
From Hydroxycut.
They started to feel the effect of that, I'm sure.
Very much so. And we were both located in similar vicinities in the Toronto area.
Okay.
Right. So, those were turbulent times.
Yeah, I can imagine.
And, we're putting so much effort into growing Slim Quick and NX Labs, and we're literally just on a roll.
Yes.
And it got so deep that they had actually contacted all the magazines at the time and said, "Listen, if you're going to take Wellnex's advertising, we're going to pull all our advertising out."
So they started to play that game too. And
at that point, they were by far the largest advertiser in the industry. Like in Muscle Mag, we would have had, back in the day, 65 pages of ads.
Yeah, I was going to say it was wild. Like every couple of pages was something. Yeah.
So they put that pressure from, multiple angles on us. And I remember, so we were like, okay, NX Labs is probably going to stabilize or, not fizzle out, but it's going to have problems if we can't advertise there. So we built another brand called Biogenetic Labs.
Okay.
Right. And I actually have a couple of the products here, but we built this new brand that we could take out more to a mass market, right? It was a body transformation kit.
Okay.
And I remember, going and presenting this down at GNC. And at the time they had an interim CEO, I believe his name was Bruce Barkus. And we came in there and we were a hot brand with NX Labs and stuff. And we came up with new technology called D2T technology. And we basically took a decanoate ester that was used in the steroid world and combined it to arginine and creatine and one other ingredient, I can't remember what it was, to produce this time release of these ingredients.
Interesting.
So we had this new technology. This was our strategy, right? We bring a new technology, we bring a new format, and we advertise it in different places, like USA Today.
Okay.
So we took out full page ads in USA Today for this new body transformation kit.
That's
I think
crazy.
the ads at the time were $65,000 per page, somewhere in that range. And so I'm presenting with the team down at GNC, and I see the CEO leans over and whispers to his senior buyer. And right then and there, the senior buyer says, we'd like to place a $1 million PO.
Oh, that's
for
awesome.
this purchase order for this, right?
Yeah.
So, what happened was, obviously a rattling, I guess would be the right word, roadblock.
Sure.
But the strength and the mind of the team was, okay, here's our way to get around this.
Yeah.
And eventually Wellnex and I of 8, which is Muscle Tech, I think they fought it out in court for a few years and stuff, eventually came to a resolution.
Some type of agreement.
I don't know what it was or anything, but just business lessons and how to build a brand, how to be resilient.
Yeah.
Right. In business, you get told no 20 times, right?
Absolutely.
But it's the one yes
Yep.
that you solve somebody's problem. That's when you get your success.
Open it up.
Right. So that was probably the biggest one. I came from Canada down to the US and worked with Isotori, a great group of people. And so Isotori got bought while I was there by Fit Life Brands.
Yep.
And this is more of a personal side, but I was in the immigration process of coming through. And when Fit Life Brands bought Isotori, if they had have rolled Isotori into Fit Life Brands instead of keeping it on its own as its own business, I would have had 30 days to leave the country, because the company Isotori that sponsored me to come down was no longer in business.
Oh boy.
It would have been rolled over into Fit Life Brands.
Oh wow.
So many nerve-wracking times, right? You move your whole family down here. You go through the immigration process where I qualified for a green card, but I had to enter a lottery
to get it.
Yeah. So I think there was 63,000 green cards that were going to be granted that year. And there was over 165,000 people that qualified for them. So you enter a lottery.
Wow.
So I made it through the lottery.
Huh.
And then Isotori, or the publicly traded company of Isotori, got sold to Fit Life Brands.
Yeah.
So literally, if Fit Life Brands did not keep the company separate, I would have had 30 days to move my family back to Canada.
God, that's crazy.
So, I mean, things just have rolled in my favor.
Yeah.
Right? There's obviously adversity, but, good things happen.
Yes.
Yeah. So those are a few things.
Up and down. That's crazy, man.
Yeah.
But I mean, just going through that, right? Just the experience of it is wild. That's crazy.
Yeah. Every day for, 90 days there was a big question mark of what was going to happen. And, thankfully, we're all through, and, one of my sons is a dual citizen. I'm a dual citizen now. My other son isn't yet, but when he wants to, he has the ability to now. So
that's crazy, man.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Good stuff, man. Well, I appreciate you coming on and sharing your story, man. It's a lot of fun, and we've got some great things coming up. So.
That's a small piece of it.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
there might be more at some time, but
yes.
We talked about magazines.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
And I want to show you something.
Okay.
So what I brought is the first edition of Muscle Mag.
Holy cow.
Yep. So this was given to me by Robert Kennedy himself.
Really?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Open to page 43.
Okay.
And I want you to read one of the things that's in there.
What year is this from?
1974.
That's crazy. It's in good shape.
It came directly from Robert. And I think apparently
what did
there's
you say, page 40?
43.
Okay.
So I think there's 15 to 20 of them in the world.
Of these magazines?
Of the first edition.
Wow.
That's it. Read the one question in the center column, if you can see it.
So it says, question. This is a tough question. One thing that is absolutely certain, no single person is the strongest in all movements.
So read the question right above it. Who is the
strongest man on earth?
Yeah. So strongest man on earth.
Okay.
Number one, not world's strongest man.
No,
strongest
man
on
on earth. I love it.
All right.
Tough question. Yeah.
So they
and then they list out different guys at certain things. Yeah.
Yeah. So even back in 1974, there was a debate on who was the strongest person on the planet or strongest man on earth.
Isn't that cool? Yeah.
Right. And I understand it's your birthday coming up.
It is my birthday coming up. Yeah.
Well, there's your birthday present.
That's nuts, man. How cool is that?
Yep.
That's really, really neat. Thank you.
You're a collector of all things muscle and strength and everything else. So
that's crazy, man.
That's
awesome.
That would be good for your collection.
That's really good, man. It's and it's from
1974.
74. Wow.
Yeah. Volume 1, issue 1.
That's and you said there's only like 15 of those.
So Robert Kennedy, the publisher, has obviously passed away.
Yep.
But when I spoke to him about this, he said he thinks there's less than 20 in the world, and that's wild. That's one of the pristine versions of it.
It looks incredible. Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll have to get that framed or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go. Add it to your collection. Happy birthday.
Thanks, man. That's really cool.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I was not expecting that at all. It'd say, hey, we have a fun conversation now. I got really neat.
When you read
some of the old stuff.
When you go back and you spend an evening reading that, you'll see it's no different than today's world.
It'll be cool to look like if there's like pictures of weights in there.
There is.
Like that'll be really neat to see like what the weights are. And, as you know, I'm into like the older weight plates and stuff. So
100%.
Like seeing what they're advertising or, some of those things are really, really cool. So
yeah,
that's awesome,
sure.
Craig. Really, really neat, man. Yeah. I think that might be the first gift that I've ever got like during a podcast.
There you go.
I'm pretty confident actually.
First for everything.
Yeah, man. That's cool. That's cool. Well, hopefully you guys enjoyed that, and like we said, maybe we'll, either, do it again or share a little bit more or whatever.
There's a lot more depth and things, but this was a great conversation.
Yeah,
Loved
man.
it.
I mean, it's just a little bit, and another reason I wanted to do it too is I want you guys to know what's going on with the brands, especially Undefined Nutrition, as we're growing that. And, it's really neat, I think, for people to sometimes see, again, behind the curtain, like, hey, how are these decisions being made? And, as I talk about different products and things that I'm using, where did it come from? And, the team behind it, right? Like sometimes it just makes it more personable, and so, people that give it a try, like understand like, hey, there's real people with real knowledge that are really bringing this to life and making it grow. So a lot of fun. So if you guys have not tried something from Undefined Nutrition, give it a try. I promise you will not be disappointed, but hopefully you enjoyed that. Thanks for the magazine, man.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I really appreciate that. And hope you all are doing amazing. For now, go out and be great. We'll check you guys later. If you enjoyed this podcast episode and would like to listen to another, click right here. And to stay informed about new podcast episodes, click here to subscribe.